If we can move along now to Debbie Yuster, who we're very pleased to welcome from Ramapo College of New Jersey. I'm not sure I've pronounced that correctly, actually. Who's giving a presentation entitled Individual Oral Examinations in an Online Linear Algebra Course.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. And yes, it's Ramapo College of New Jersey. Thanks, everyone. This is actually my first time presenting outside of the US, so I'm very excited. And thanks to Talmo, I've been enjoying your workshops all year also. Okay, so I prepared kind of a 1-minute version of the presentation. Let me just start my clock in case I run out of time. I'll know that I covered everything. So in the fall, I was teaching a linear algebra course. It was a fairly small course, 18 students. And for exams, I scheduled 20-minute individual oral exams on Zoom. The exam consisted of 2 or 3 problems. I say that because I did 2 rounds. So once I had 2 problems, once I had 3 problems. The students were required to show their work on the Zoom. They could either use a tablet and stylus, which a few of them had, or they could use their smartphone as a document camera. And I'll speak more about the technical setup behind that. It's important to grade the problems as you go, both to sort of keep the time down and also because the recordings may have missed something afterwards. My motivation, I guess, initially was that this setup is really, I think, as secure as a remote exam can possibly be. I would say it's nearly impossible to cheat. There may be some formula sheets strewn about, but nothing like Chegg or having someone else answer the questions for them. It's just not possible with this setup. It was also really nice to be able to give an adaptive exam, and I'll speak more about that. It's good preparation for students who may go on to have a technical interview for a job, or will go on to graduate school and face oral exams, which can be intimidating. So it's a bit of a dry run for that. The downsides are that it's very time consuming. This is not feasible if you have a course with 100 students. And actually most students enjoyed it, but a few of them felt somewhat stressed by this idea. And you cannot give the same questions to every student. So in that sense, you're not judging everyone by uniform standards. So I would say those are the bad parts. Okay, so on my end, I had a dual monitor setup. So on one screen, I shared the problem. So I prepared a LaTeX Beamer presentation with 1 problem per slide. And that was on one of my monitors. And on the other one, I was able to see the student's face and the student's work as they wrote it out. I can't manage more than 2 screens, so I also felt it was important to have some old-fashioned papers around. I wrote notes and did the grading on actual paper. And then later on, I entered those into my VLE or LMS, if there are any other Americans on the call. And I used Canvas, and the rubric feature in Canvas assignments was very convenient because I already had the number of points for the problem, and I can just type in the feedback and it automatically tabulated the scores for me. I also felt it was very important to have all the answers written out ahead of time because there's just so much going on in real time. You don't want to have to think too hard about solving the problem. You want to be able to jot notes and just check in that the student is sort of on the right track. So I had a paper solution key next to me. And again, the recording, sometimes the video feed doesn't come through. So don't plan to go back and grade afterwards. It's important that you do it in real time. Here's a kind of picture of a setup. So here is my monitor. You see I have just 1 problem displayed on a single slide. And then here I have the student. This is actually my daughter posing. And I can see as she's doing the work. Okay, so the student setup, there are a few options. If the student does not have a tablet and stylus, which most of mine did not, they can rig a kind of document camera setup with their phone. So the idea is they join the Zoom from both their computer with their webcam and from their phone. It's important not to connect audio on the phone, otherwise you'll get terrible feedback and echo. They don't need to screen share. So what they do is while they're joining on their phone, they flip the camera around to the back camera. and they use that to show their work. So you have to create this sort of cantilevered book tower and use hardcover, or maybe you guys call them hardback, because if you use paperback, the phone crashes. I've experienced that a few times. So you have a stack of books and then another book cantilevered over it, and then the phone cantilevered over that. That gives them enough space to write comfortably, and the quality is actually very, very good. They do need to watch out for the orientation. They have to kind of hold their phone up so that it flips to the landscape orientation before they put it down. And it'll be hard to see if they write in pencil, so encourage them to bring something dark. Using a stylus and tablet is, I guess, a bit easier. However, you can't both screen share. So if you're screen sharing the problem, you then have to stop the screen share and let your student take over screen sharing. You can have either fixed problem types. So on one exam, I said everyone's going to have a problem on solving a system of linear equations, or sort of flexible, but similar in scope and difficulty. So I said, there will be a proof problem, or there will be a problem regarding linear transformations. I prepared multiple versions of each problem, but I would use the same one twice in a row, because if one student is coming off the Zoom and the next person's entering, they're not going to have time to sort of share the problem information. And I made sure not to put any question numbers on the slides. I didn't want students like building a problem bank where they say, oh, what was problem 6 or something like that. What was nice was the adaptivity, that I gave students the opportunity to sort of exchange problems. If there was one that they were not going to get, they could take a penalty and I would give them a new one. And if they were doing, let's say, row reduction, and I see they made an arithmetic mistake, I had the opportunity to correct them and let them go on. Whereas on a paper exam, if they make a mistake, it kind of goes off track. It's the wrong kind of solution. Okay, so I think I'm out of time, but I will share the link to my slides. I have some pros and cons and a few references if you want to read more about this. My inspiration was mostly Jenny Quinn's blog. So thanks so much for having me.